G'day everyone, how you doing? It's me, it's your boy, it's Patchy. I'm doing good, thanks for asking. So recently, I have been rewatching the entirety of Star Wars movies, and I'm gonna be jumping onto the show soon again, just because my girlfriend's dad has never watched it, and he was curious as to why I'm always raving about it and why I love it. So he wanted to watch it from start to finish. So we ended up doing 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, and 3, and then to sort of watch it the way it was intended to be watched, we watched 1 through 6 and then 7, 8, 9. So, being that it's so fresh in my mind, I've decided I'm gonna do a tier list on what I think about these Star Wars films, and yeah. So this list may get a bit controversial, but this is how I personally feel about the movies and shows. This list will be me ranking these movies and films in the way that they, 1, make me feel, and 2, yeah, I'm gonna be ranking these on pretty much my favorite to least favorite. So this is just gonna be my Star Wars tier list. So we have the tier list here. With any tier list, S through to E, I'm gonna go with order of release as best as I can remember them, okay? So let's start off with Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope. Now, clearly an A. I'm gonna pretty much have to say that all original trilogy movies gotta be an A, except for Return of the Jedi. I think that's S tier. Explain why in a second. So, Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope, obviously the first Star Wars movie that ever came out, 1977, was a good year, was a global phenomenon. And it is amazing to think that from that one movie that George Lucas created, such a massive universe came from it. When you look at all the books and all the TV shows since then and everything else, it all came from one movie that pretty much set it all up. But obviously, he had a plan for everything else, kind of. Anyway, Episode 5, Empire Strikes Back. Now, this film, if I remember correctly, was not actually directed by George Lucas. It was written by George, but not directed by him, and was considered the best Star Wars movie of all time for a long time. And I think it was the longest movie until Attack of the Clones and then The Last Jedi. This movie, I don't know, it might even deserve an S tier, but it is such an amazing movie to watch start to finish because, it doesn't give into the classic sort of movie tropes of good guys always win. The heroes of this film, after watching them succeed in the last film by blowing up the Death Star and having a fucking big finale, they lose in this film. They lose. And if you've seen Avengers Infinity War, that was the first time we saw all of the heroes lose, and it was whoa, and it was a fucking excellent film. Same can be said about Empire Strikes Back. It's you're taken sort of out of your comfort zone, and the heroes fucking lose, dude, and the Empire wins, and it's whoa. Fuck. Plus, obviously, the big reveal, spoiler alert if you haven't seen the film, come on. The big reveal of, Vader being Luke's father, which was apparently really crazy even back then. A lot of people didn't like Empire Strikes Back from what I've heard when it first came out, but now it's the Star Wars film, apart from obviously Revenge of the Sith. Anyway, moving on. Return of the Jedi, I put that as an S tier because it closes out the original saga. By that I mean 1 through 6 so beautifully and so nice. The heroes defeat the Empire again. Vader gets turned back to the light, Emperor is defeated, and all in all, it's just a really happy way to end the saga. If you look at this Star Wars saga from 1 through 6 only, excluding the new Disney movies, it wraps it up beautifully, and it is there was this whole sort of journey from Anakin being a child, growing into Vader, and then doing really bad and evil shit, and then redeeming himself by ending the ultimate evil. And I connect with this movie personally only because of a purely nostalgic reason. We had Return of the Jedi recorded on VHS. Now, for the kids that don't know what VHS is, looks like that. Anyway, I would watch this movie religiously to the point where I'd finish school, come home, chuck it into the VCR, watch the movie from start to finish, and then usually start it again at least once or twice. And even to this day, if I ever watch it with, my missus or, the way we were watching it with her dad, I was reciting a lot of the lines of the film. Because I would literally every day after school I would come home and watch it, and it just holds a special place in my heart for this film. Plus the end scene where Luke sort of gives into the dark side to defeat Vader, and there's a piece of music that plays, which is I think one of John Williams' greatest. Also, I'm a massive fan of John Williams' work. I think it's unparalleled. His music complements the film so well that Star Wars would not be Star Wars without John Williams. But there is that scene where Vader learns of Leia being Luke's twin sister, and he says like, if you will not turn to the dark side, then perhaps she will. And then he's like, no! And then, yeah, they have that fight, and there's that piece of music, which is so powerful. And yeah, it's just a wonderful, wonderful film, and I really love it. Anyway, moving on. So we've got The Phantom Menace. Now, where to put you? I think Phantom Menace belongs in B, because I do have fond memories of this film. I remember the first time it was shown on TV. I wasn't in a very wealthy household as a child, so we didn't buy a lot of the films that were coming out. We would usually wait till they'd be on TV and then record them. I don't know how big that was. The fact that there was an option to do so, like on pretty much every VCR. I think not even pretty much, I think every VCR had the option to record. Anyway, I remember my dad showing me this movie when I was like, I think I was like 4 or 3. It's like one of my earliest memories as a child. And it was like, I'm spewing because he didn't let me watch the fucking film, but he would skip to the pod race. And I just remember the old box TV that we had in the unit that we were in, and watching this like amazing feat of CGI and movie magic before me, like in front of my eyes. I was like, holy shit. And I think that was the beginning for me in terms of my love for Star Wars. In saying that though, there are a few flaws with the film, but I mean, like they didn't have to kill Qui-Gon off, man. Qui-Gon was such a cool Jedi. There is a lot of like political shit, and I know that like the political stuff is very important to how the Republic fell and turned into the Empire. But as a kid, I'm like, dude, I don't care. Show me lightsabers and fucking blasters. In saying that, like that last scene at the end, Duel of the Fates, oh my god, the soundtrack, the choreography, everything fucking excellent. But I'm still putting it under B. Attack of the Clones, I would say, I don't really know. I would have to say C tier. And I feel like a lot of people would agree with me, because I feel like the only real good parts of this film are the speeder chase and the last bits with the clones coming in. There are a lot of good things and a lot of bad things about this film, but nothing really sort of stands out to me. I really have to think about this film, but it doesn't grab me. Out of all of the original 6 films, you know, prequels and original trilogy, I would say this is probably my least favorite. Yeah. All right. Should I say more? I don't think so, because obviously Revenge of the Sith, brilliant film, excellent opening act, and the fact that it was meant to be a 4-hour film. If there is someone listening, Kathleen Kennedy, please, for the love of God, release that 4-hour cut. As I was saying, the opening act and the climax of like Anakin turning to the dark side, becoming Darth Vader, executing Order 66, rest in peace, all the Jedi. And then Obi-Wan having to go and confront him, Sidious and Yoda. Oh, what a film. What a film. I like to think that this movie gives people some sort of sympathy or compassion to Vader, because it's not his fault that he turned. I mean, it kind of is, but he was like manipulated into thinking that his wife was gonna die. The Jedi Council were opposed to him doing anything because they were all fucking scared of him or whatever. So it just fell into like him just getting angry and just saying fuck it. That's how I see it anyway. But yeah, so and it's just like a tragic story for him, because then, you know, he loses his wife and his best friend and the entire Jedi Order. I mean, he did kill them, but anyway. Then he gets burnt alive and has to live out the rest of his life in this suit that gives him nothing but pain and annoyance. And I really wish they sort of like dug into that a little bit more, like to show his proper discomfort with it. But it is what it is. We get that all in the expanded stuff anyway. But yeah, what's next in terms of release? We've missed out on the Clone Wars. The Clone Wars, I'm gonna go with B, purely because like the first half of that show was clearly meant for kids. I know Star Wars is a kids movie and everything is for kids, but yeah, but whatever, shut up. The first half of this show was really meant for the kids, but then the last few seasons were like, whoa. Sorry, I just noticed that was a Clone Wars movie. I'm gonna put that down to C, only because same thing. I don't really feel anything for that movie, and because they haven't used the original actors, they've used other actors. It was initially very confusing. Like, as a kid, I was like, this doesn't make sense. Why wouldn't they just use the people that actually played them in the films? But whatever. It was a choice they made, and you know, now looking back, I'm like, they made an excellent decision. So yeah, so actual Clone Wars show there and Clone Wars movie down there. What would be next? Okay, so here's where I get a bit weird on the release date. So let's just go with this order. Star Wars Rebels, A tier. Again, it initially started off as a kid show, and it was obvious that it was a kid show, but it evolved into something truly amazing. And if you haven't watched Clone Wars or Rebels, I suggest you do so. And not only that, it sets up for the Ahsoka show, which I just noticed is not here. It leads into the Ahsoka show really well, so I really love that. But yeah, all in all, it was just a great show. And obviously, we got Thrawn, which is just an amazing character, which is, fun fact, the only character with a pipe organ in their theme song. And I fucking love the pipe organ, man. Star Wars Resistance, I've never seen it, so that's how I feel about it. But I've heard things about it. The animation style is kind of cool, but like I've heard, like it didn't even last that long. I think it got canned after like the first or second season. That's I'm curious actually. Yeah, 2018 to 2020. It didn't last long at all. Why was it cancelled? Noah left. Oh, okay. Yeah, I tried watching it, and I think didn't like it because I think it was that whole part. There was that whole moment around, because that came out after The Last Jedi, if I remember correctly. Yeah, it did. It came out just after The Last Jedi, which, you know, if you were a fan of Star Wars and then having watched the sequel trilogy, I'll get into more of it later. But obviously, when The Last Jedi came out, they boycotted Lucasfilm, and everyone had a really big problem about it. And yeah, it was a shame because maybe, you know what, I might have missed out on some good content there. And I think I'm going to watch it at some point just to see what it's about. Okay, moving on. Rogue One. A or B, A or B, A or B. I think I'm going to go with A. I think Rogue One was a really, really good film. I remember watching it in the cinemas. This was the first spin-off movie that was released. So it was weird to not have the main Skywalker saga characters in it, and you had a whole bunch of new people, but it was so beautifully shot, and it was written so well, in my opinion. And obviously, who can forget that end scene? No one saw it coming. I mean, I didn't see that coming, but I remember being in the cinema, and as they're like escaping to the Tantive 4, and then you get that dark hallway scene with Vader. Oh my God, what a piece of cinema. That was such an amazing sequence. Jaw hit the floor in the cinema. That was like one of the best things I've ever seen from Star Wars, I think, is that final scene of that movie. And then we get CGI Carrie, and that was a bit off-putting, but it was cool to see how it led into A New Hope. And it sort of tied the two movies, you know, sort of together. And you're like, okay, so that's how we got to here, kind of thing. So yeah, that's why I think I'll pop that in A tier. Solo. Now, Solo got a lot of hate, and I recently watched it, and I still like it. I remember liking it in the cinemas. When it came out, I think I bought the Blu-ray, and I just thought it was an excellent film, and I don't know why a lot of people had an issue with it. I know because it came right after The Last Jedi, and a lot of people had a problem with The Last Jedi, including myself, but I didn't give up my hope for Star Wars. Solo, I enjoyed it, putting that in B tier. And because, what's his name? He's the childish Gambino. Donald Glover's portrayal of Lando Calrissian was absolutely fucking great. I really enjoyed it. Yeah, even Alden Ehrenreich's, I'm butchering his name. I don't know. I feel like I'm saying it wrong. Anyway, Alden's portrayal of Han, I think, was very in the character of Han, and a lot of people didn't think so, but I thought it was an excellent portrayal of Han's character, and I think that's where that movie lies. Might even be an A, but not quite. Alrighty. Force Awakens. I remember seeing the trailer for this film, and I think a lot of people do, and a lot of people can remember the joy and like the child inside of them like crying with happiness when they saw the trailer for this film. When I initially saw it, I really enjoyed it, and I thought it was an excellent film. I didn't really like Rey's character. Obviously, it's not a perfect movie, and it is almost a carbon copy of A New Hope, but I still think it was a good film. It was the nostalgic feeling from watching it and getting to see Star Wars in like modern film, I think was one of the reasons why I really liked it. The writing was a bit, how you going? And the fact that they killed Han Solo off. I didn't like that, but I knew that's what Harrison Ford wanted of his character. He wanted Han to die since like Empire, so he got what he wanted. But yeah, I think it was a good film. Where would I put it? I'd probably put it in... Well, I don't know if I'd put it in B. I think maybe C. I think maybe... No, I'm going to put it in B because it sort of sparked that joy for me, and I really like it for that. Okay, so the good one. So, The Last Jedi. You know that scene in the movie? I mean, the opening was excellent. Love the opening. Be weirded out by the bombers, but anyway, the scene where Rey meets Luke and you've been waiting for like a year and a half or 2 years to sort of pick up where Force Awakens left off. Like, what did Luke do? What did Rey do? Did they say anything to each other? Like, what happened? And Luke grabs the saber and just fucking throws it over his shoulder and walks away. And my missus reminds me every time we watch this movie, which has only been a handful of times. I've only watched this movie a handful of times. I think less than 10 times I've seen this movie. Every time she reminds me of my reaction to that scene, because she looked over at me and I was like, what the fuck? Like, pure, like, if you could paint a face of what the fuck, it was my face. I was like, what the fuck? What the fuck was happening? And then because of that scene, it threw me so off and I just wasn't into it. It took me out of the film completely. And I can't deny, to this day, I cannot deny that movie was shot beautifully and it has some really, really cool scenes. But at the time, I hated it, as did a lot of Star Wars fans at the time, you know, to the point where they started a boycott. But here's where it gets controversial. I thought, okay, look, at first it was shocking, but I wanted to give it another go because at the end of the day, it is Star Wars. And I do love Star Wars as a whole. And of course, there are going to be films that I don't particularly like, but I wanted to give it another chance. And so I bought the Blu-ray, because this was, I think, before Disney Plus even was a thing. Bought the Blu-ray, went home, watched it again, and I was still kind of like, about it. I was still kind of like, I still couldn't believe that they did that to Luke's character. They completely contradicted his character. However, every other year, I would watch that movie again, and I would think, okay, it's not that bad. I think the main thing that everyone had an issue with, obviously, was Luke's character. It wasn't even that, it was the complete smack in the face that was to his character. The man that redeemed one of the most evil people in the galaxy, his dad, redeemed him and believed in him that he could come back from the dark side. But he took one look at his nephew and he was like, oh no, he's evil, fuck, I gotta kill him. But the way I look at it, you have to sort of look past the fact that he made a stupid decision and listen to the dialogue, because he said it himself. In a moment of pure weakness, I took my lightsaber. Obviously, it's not verbatim. I can't remember exactly what he said in the scene, but he wasn't thinking. He was like, fuck, I gotta stop it before he destroys my entire order. And I think because he wasn't raised as a Jedi, like the Jedi in the Republic were, he didn't know how to think. He was still very selfish and not selfless. He just wanted to protect what he held dear to him, and his instinct immediately said, kill it, destroy it, get rid of it, even though that was his sister's son. But he immediately caught himself and said, no, I can't do that. But it was too late. By that time, Ben had already seen him with his lightsaber out and obviously killed everyone. In saying that too, the reason why he became such a hermit and never rebuilt the Jedi Order is because he was so ashamed of what he had done that he believed that he shouldn't carry on the legacy of the Jedi and should just let it die. Because like I said, I have been rewatching these films and I watched The Last Jedi only last week. And you know what? I believe that this movie is a lot better than people think. And the people that really truly despise this movie and truly hate it, I get it. But sit down and watch it again a few more times. Knowing what you know, if you've only seen it once in the cinema and you hated it from then, you say, I'm never watching that film again, it's a piece of shit, blah, 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 blah. Give it a chance. Watch it one more time or two and truly sort of immerse yourself in the film. Even if you have to skip that scene where Luke just throws his lightsaber over his shoulder, just so that doesn't take you out of the film like it did for me. Even watching this film again, it took me out of it. But knowing what I know about the rest of the film, I'm like, that makes sense. He's over it. He doesn't want anything to do with the Jedi. Even if it is his dad's old lightsaber, which was his at one stage. I think it's completely justified. And here it comes. Total controversial move. but it's an A movie. I think it's an A-class movie. The music in it is excellent. The way it was shot was excellent. The cinematography, I mean, was unbelievable. And I think it's clearly one of the best shot films in the entire Skywalker saga. Yeah, I would hold it at the same level as Empire and A New Hope, because it also gives us that one line from when Yoda comes back as a Force ghost, destroys the Jedi texts, and he says to Luke, he's like, yes, you failed, and yes, you lost Ben, but don't lose Rey, because failure is the biggest teacher. For some reason that resonated with me. When Yoda said, pass on what you have learnt, he was also saying, pass on what you've learnt from your failures. Not just the teachings of the Jedi, because your apprentices shouldn't make the same mistakes because they know the outcome of those failures. So they will not fail in the same way, and they will have their own failures to grow from. But yeah, I think it's a really good film. Moving on. Episode 9, Rise of Skywalker. The movie that ties everything up. The movie that brought back Palpatine, which I think was massive fan service because of The Last Jedi. I think this movie was going to be completely different, and it had a completely different sort of trajectory. I don't know if anyone's seen or heard of the leaked script for the original film, but it was a completely different movie. And I think if Last Jedi didn't cop all the hate that it did, it would have been that movie. And I think that movie would have been excellent. But all of the people that had an issue with The Last Jedi, I think that was justified because it was a shock to our system. It was a shock to everything. So, Rise of Skywalker, I think, goes into B for me. Again, just a reminder, this is my own personal view on the Star Wars media as a whole. You may have a different opinion, and I will respect your opinion. I have my own opinion. Respect mine, please. I would hold that there purely for the fan service. It had some really good lines. C-3PO had some fucking hilarious lines. The music was unbelievable, as per usual. John Williams did a wonderful, wonderful job. There's not a huge connection with this film. Like, it could, for me, be a C tier, but I feel like it belongs in B. But then again, and episode 1 is in B, and I do like that a lot more than I do like Rise of Skywalker. So I might pop that in C. I'll pop it in C. I think that makes a bit more sense now, because I do like Force Awakens better than I like Rise of Skywalker. Mandalorian, controversial pick. Whew. S tier. I think it's an S tier series because it gave us finally a cool Western feel to Star Wars. I remember watching the first episode, and the first thing I was like, fuck, this guy is cool. I feel like I was feeling the same thing that what other people were feeling in 1980 about Boba Fett. Thinking like, whoa, this guy's cool. You know, like I never really understood the love for Boba Fett because the guy had like little to no screen time, but he was such a phenomenon for people. But looking at The Mandalorian, I was like, whoa, this guy is unreal. Like, he is so cool. He's just doesn't give a fuck. Mad person. So yeah, like season 1, absolutely amazing. Season 2, oh my god, even better. Season 3 was a bit how you going, but all in all, I really enjoyed the whole thing, and I personally don't have anything bad to say about it. Mandalorian show, fucking amazing. Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau did a fucking fantastic job, and obviously all the other directors. Alrighty, so I still feel like I'm forgetting something.
Are you stuck-up, half-witted, scruffy-looking nerf herder?
But we're just gonna go along with it. I'm actually recording this before I have to go to work, so Book of Boba Fett, I thoroughly enjoyed it. But no, yeah, but it was pretty questionable. I'm gonna go put it in B tier. Some really cool moments, really cool scenes. Loved the fact that Tamira Morrison came back to play him, even though he copped a bit of bullying for it. You know, people were calling him Boba Fett from The Mandalorian. That's another thing I forgot about The Mandalorian, is that it reintroduced Boba Fett and Ahsoka back into Star Wars and brought Ahsoka into live action. So that's pretty fucking cool. And Luke Skywalker, that Luke Skywalker scene was, this end of season 2 was fucking amazing. I'm pretty sure I cried. Anyway, because, you know, Luke, we're going back to the Return of the Jedi, right? Pretty much my favorite Star Wars film ever. It was very heavy hitting on the emotions. I also wanted to add the Mandalorian episode. You know how he kind of hijacked the entire show from Boba Fett. That was kind of not cool. That really should have been like a season 3 episode 1 kind of deal for Mando, but whatever. We got it, and it was such a great episode. The CGI for Luke was really sick, and it was just lovely to see that again. Book of Boba Fett, yeah, I think belongs in B. Ahsoka, I would say that's a tough one, because I really like Ahsoka a lot more than Last Jedi, but I like it the same as Rebels, but more. But, that's a tough one. Ooh, I feel like I'm gonna have to rearrange this. I haven't been thinking about it. Okay, yeah, I think I didn't really even fucking change that, but I feel like that's better. Yeah. You know what? No, Ahsoka I think is S tier. I think it was very well done. I think the portrayals of both Ahsoka and Sabine and Thrawn were fucking amazing. Also, spoiler alert if you haven't seen it, Thrawn's in it. It's excellent. Baylan Skoll was a fucking amazing character. Rest in peace, Ray Stevenson. I think he's one of the only characters that they have introduced a fresh character and everyone immediately loved. I don't think there is a single person that dislikes Baylan Skoll. He's just such a cool character, and his apprentice, I'm blanking on her name, but she's really cool as well. All right, Andor, where to put you? Because I liked Andor more than Force Awakens. I think I'm going to put it in B tier. I think it was written very well. I didn't connect with it all that much, but I thought it was an excellent show. And it was, again, cool to see something outside of the Skywalker perspective, outside of the Skywalker sort of box that we have. Tales of the Jedi, I will hold that to the same as Clone Wars. It was cool to see the characters, you know, like Count Dooku when he was a Jedi, to see a young Qui-Gon, to see Ahsoka's sort of origin and, you know, what she was kind of doing right after Order 66. I thought that was pretty cool. Bad Batch, I will put that into the same tier, B. Because, again, like the other ones, it's outside that Skywalker saga. We're still within it, obviously, but not following the Jedi and you know, Anakin, Luke, all them. So it is different, and I think it's really good, and I'm really keen for the last season, which is only due next month. So that'll be amazing, I'm sure of it. Again, I still feel like I'm missing something, but I don't know what. I will know in the future when I am editing this. There is actually something that I did forget. I did forget about Kenobi, and I will put Kenobi into S tier because it was so cool to see Vader. The fight between Kenobi and Vader was epic. Both fights actually were so great. Reva was an interesting character. Seeing the flashback scenes of Obi-Wan and Anakin training together in the temple and the flashback scenes of Order 66 were really, really cool. But I think that the biggest takeaway from this show was the last duel between Vader and Obi-Wan. It was so surreal, and that piece of dialogue between the two of them after he cut open his helmet was just phenomenal. Anyway, back to the video. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed it, please like, share, and subscribe. This has been my Star Wars tier list. I don't even know if this is final, to be honest. I might even re-record it at some stage, or my opinion may change, but at the moment, this is how I feel about the entirety of the Star Wars media that we've gotten in terms of the movies and TV shows. And again, I understand that everyone will have their own opinions and their own connection with Star Wars, and that's cool. This is mine. Also, if you enjoyed this insight into my brain and what I think of this, and you want to see me do more tier lists, share it with me in the comments and maybe I'll do one. Also, if you think that you got a video that'll make me laugh, you know where to put it. It's in the Discord. Link is in the description. So yeah. Thanks for watching. Bye.